Alright folks, let's set the scene. The story surrounds a former Korean arm wrestler named Mark. He currently works as a bouncer in a club in America. One evening at work, he is approached by his old associate Jin-ki, who urges him to compete in an arm wrestling match. Mark is not interested, but Jin-ki doesn't give up and eventually persuades him. They go to the other side of the club where people are enjoying betting on matches. The guy Mark is competing against has won for the entire night, making Mark the underdog, even though the other guy is clearly going to be more tired. No one wants to bet on someone like him, which turns out to be an advantage for Jin-ki. The match starts and Mark proves why he used to be a professional arm wrestler. The opponent breaks a lot of sweat, but cannot move Mark's hand by an inch. Without even trying, Mark wins the game, which makes Jin-ki a bucket full of money. Conflict arises when the guy who lost refuses to accept defeat. He hits Jin-ki, which eventually causes a fight between Mark and a bunch of customers. Because of the fight, he is kicked out of the job. A week later, he gets another job as a security guard in a grocery store. He makes a decent living and is content with his life, except sometimes he misses home. Then one day, he gets a call from Jin-ki asking him to come to Korea. There is an arm wrestling tournament starting in Seoul, the winner of which will get to compete at the international level. Mark stares at his old medals for a long time, before deciding to take the biggest risk in his life. Upon landing in Seoul, Jin-ki comes to pick him up. They go to a restaurant and talk about business over a meal. Jin-ki wants to be Mark's agent and take care of the business side of his profession. He wishes Mark well, but is planning to go into the betting business to make more money. For this, he will have to exploit Mark's skill. For the remainder of the day, the duo takes a tour of Seoul. At one of the destinations, some girls mistake Mark for a tourist attraction and take pictures with him. After living in America for many years, Mark's Korean tongue is shaky, which leads him to awkward conversations. At night, they go to a club, but Mark stands in the corner the entire time, subconsciously working as a bouncer again. On their way to the hotel, Jin-ki inquires if he has ever wanted to find out where his biological mother is. It turns out that Mark was given up for adoption as a child. He says that he has no interest in meeting anyone since all of it is in the past. Jin-ki then drops him at the place he is staying for the night, which happens to be a love hotel. Mark experiences a vibrating waterbed for the first time. But what really catches his attention is a gift box. It is from Jin-ki, and has a phone inside. On checking, he finds the address of his biological mother on it. Somewhere else, Jin-ki approaches a millionaire loan shark named Yu, and asks him to sponsor Mark. Initially, he is hung upside down for talking to Yu without permission. But upon looking at a video of Mark, the gangster agrees to sponsor him. His only condition is that Mark will have to win and lose, as ordered. The next morning, Mark follows the map on his phone, and makes it to an address. Before knocking on the door, two kids approach him. His build makes them believe he is a beast. So to avoid scaring them, he walks away. The children tell their mother Soo-jin about the strange guy standing in front of their house. The family spies on Mark through the window, and watches him walk away. Soo-jin owns a thrift store that is not doing well. She owes a lot of money to the gangster Yu, who troubles her every chance he gets. That day at work, this is Mark and Yu walking into a club in the mall. Jin-ki has brought Mark to introduce him to the sponsors and showcase his skills. There, we are also introduced to a wealthy spoiled youngster named Kim. He is Yu's partner, and the one who spends the most money on bets. Mark proves his worth by defeating a bulky man from the Navy. Because of the win, he and Jin-ki are given a luxury room in a 5-star hotel. Jin-ki gets a text from Yu that says Mark should win the first match tomorrow, but lose the second one. He is afraid that Mark won't agree to the conditions. They go out for dinner, and Jin-ki brings up the topic of losing the second match. To his surprise, Mark agrees to do it without a fuss. The following morning, we see Soo-jin getting her kids ready for school. The eldest Jun-young is worried that the big man will come to the house again. Soo-jin suspects that Mark is someone she knows. After the kids leave for school, she brings out old pictures and finds one with little Mark and his mother. Outside, the kids bump into him again. The youngest Jun-hee is excited, but Jun-young threatens to call the police if he sees Mark again. In the next scene, we are introduced to Korea's #1 arm wrestling champion, named Combo. Yu invites him to the club that evening to evaluate Mark's skill. He doesn't want to bet money recklessly until a professional gives him the green light. That Mark is actually trustworthy. In the evening, everyone gathers at the club. Mark goes against a 7-foot giant in the first match. He wins with great effort, impressing even Korea's very own champion. Soo-jin is also in the audience watching Mark. During the break, Yu tries touching her inappropriately, declaring that he owns her because of the money she owes him. Mark sees this take place, and is not happy about it. When the second match starts, he deliberately wins, to spite you. When Yu tries to assert his ownership, he is pushed aside. Jin-ki loses his mind trying to please the boss and Mark, at the same time. He realizes that Soo-jin is the reason Mark betrayed him. In a fit of rage, he goes to her to inquire about her relationship with Mark. At the same time, Yu arrives, and starts assaulting Jin-ki. Mark intervenes, causing a fight to start between all of Yu's people and him, alone. During the fight, Soo-jin asks Yu to stop his men, only to be pushed to the ground. The commotion halts when the police arrest Mark and Jin-ki. They need Mark's identification for him to be let free. But he has lost his bag and passport in the previous fight. The policeman and Mark go against each other in a match, and he proves that he is actually an arm wrestler. Still, the man refuses to let him go, without proper identification. Right then, Soo-jin comes to the police station with her kids. She has found his passport and has a picture of him and his mother, which proves his identity. It is then revealed that Soo-jin is Mark's stepsister, and their mother died a year ago. Mark is heartbroken to hear the news, and doesn't know how to process it. The family invites Mark and Jin-ki to stay in their house for a few days. The kids love him because of his unique personality. Little June he likes to snuggle with Mark. While Jun Young starts talking to him more often. Outside the house, a bunch of teens are smoking, refusing to go even when Soo-jin asks them to. But, when Mark comes into their view, they apologize and run away in an instant. The next day, Yu's people come to collect money from Soo-jin, and threaten her. At the same time, Mark is about to leave with his belongings, not wanting to be a burden to the family. He sends the loan sharks away, but the thugs make him realize that he should stay with family, to protect them. For the next few days, they have a lot of fun together. They go to buffets, eat together, play collectively and live like a happy family. Until now it was difficult for Soo-jin to handle a business and 2 kids on her own. Her house is filled with unorganized clothes from her business. One day, she returns home to see that it has all been cleaned. Mark also takes care of the children, so she can focus on work. Meanwhile, Jin-ki is in trouble, because of a shortage of money. Upon seeing Mark with the kids, he gets an idea, and calls a friend in a broadcasting company. He wants to document Mark's life, to gain people's sympathy. Alongside some money, Mark is skeptical but agrees to do it anyway. In the following scene, we see Mark and the family going on an outing. They come across Korea's wrestling champion Combo, competing with challengers for a charity event. Mark challenges him, and wins the game, surprising everyone. A few weeks later, the story about his harsh past, adoption and struggles in wrestling is made into a documentary, and televised. The show becomes an instant success, and makes them a decent amount of money. The children start looking up to their uncle even more. One day on their way to the school, they overhear a woman bad-mouthing Mark. In retaliation, Jun-hee declares that her uncle is a champion, and makes him promise that he will win the national championship for her. In the following scene, we are introduced to Jin-ki's father, who is old but works very hard to make a living. The only reason why Jin-ki is adamant about making more money, is that he wants to give his father the best life. One where he doesn't have to work anymore. On returning home that day, Jun Young calls Mark, and shows him the emails that his mother used to write every day. Mark finds out that his mother's biggest regret in life was giving him up for adoption. Throughout her life, she wrote several emails to an address that wasn't his. In the emails, she described how hard life was when he was with her. She couldn't afford to feed him, and wanted him to have a better life. Even on her deathbed, all she wished was to meet him and say sorry. Mark also finds out that Soo-jin is not his stepsister. His mother took her in when she was a kid, after her parents passed away. The news shocks Mark, making him furious at Soo-jin for never telling him the truth. In the following scene, the family drives to Mark's mother's grave. While on the trip, he calls Soo-jin out for her lies. Mark has decided to return to America, leaving them behind, for good. Jin-ki tries to stop him since he hasn't taken part in the tournament yet and it is in a week. However, a frustrated Mark accuses him of using his friend for money, and leaves. In the following montage, we see Korea's champion Combo practicing for the championship. The gangster, Yu, has also hired a beast named Punch. He used to be a ruthless arm wrestler, famous for breaking every single arm he played against. A few years ago, he was arrested for using pills to overperform in games. He also practices his best, ready to get back in the game. Then, the day of the tournament finally arrives, the kids are home alone. When they notice that they forgot to return the medal to Mark. Using this excuse, they board a bus, and make their way to the arena to watch him wrestle. A while later, Soo-jin gets a call from her friend at the arena, and has to run to get her children. The competition starts in punch. Mark and Combo are put in 3 different groups. They dominate the matches of their respective groups, and make it to the semifinals. A ruthless Kane hurts many of his opponents and goes to the final. The millionaire investor Kim and his people have bet all their money on punch. Upon seeing how good Mark is performing, they're scared to lose all the money. Hence, Kim orders you to do everything he can to ensure their player wins. Yu in turn offers Jin-ki $200,000 for him to convince Mark to lose in the semifinals against Combo. Jin-ki accepts the money, and goes to tell his friend, but Mark refuses to seal the deal. The money will pay off all their debts and fulfill their life wishes, but still it is not worth the promise Mark made to Jun-hee. Then he wrestles Combo in an intense match and wins. In the end, during the break between matches, Yu catches Jin-ki and proceeds to beat him. However, the thugs are stopped by Mark. He pushes the gangster to the floor and saves his friend. Jin-ki forgets about the money, and asks him to win at any cost. The final match starts, and everyone holds their breath to watch it. Punch plays foul and deliberately makes their hands slip. He also pulls on Mark's thumb very hard, making him slower, with every pause. The all seems to fall in Punch's court, but just then from the side of his eyes, Mark sees the children rooting for him. With renewed interest to prove his worth to them, Mark pushes Punch's hand at once, and defeats him. In the last scene, Mark tells his mother that he loves her on television. He cannot help but cry at the thought of her suffering so much. So, that's it. Be sure to comment with your thoughts below. If the video feels good, then like this video. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified of our latest videos. Thank you for watching this video and have a nice day.